report we mentioned earlier, 2 men were jailed yesterday after pleading guilty to charges related to a bizarre series of so-called black magic killings. The court heard how the men from the village of Rishton near Blackburn butchered a pet goat and a cat as part of a sacrificial ceremony. For their part, the 2 men were sentenced to 3 and 4 months imprisonment respectively. This incident is one of a number which seem to suggest that fascination with the occult is increasing. Satanism is, of course, an ancient practice. The ritual beheading of the goat, which happened in the Rishton case, dates back to the Middle Ages. It's believed that in the Black Mass services, the goat represents the devil in one of his many guises, in particular as the patron of witches and wizards. The Church of England fears that Satanism, or devil worship, is now spreading at an alarming rate. It's a practice which the Church believes holds many dangers. Last May, symbols associated with devil worship were found chalked on a 100-year-old gravestone in the isolated churchyard of St James, Alton. It's reported they included the number 666, which the Bible says is the mark of the beast or the devil, inverted crosses and circles. There was also evidence that a service near the grave had taken place. A blood-stained altar cloth was also found in a separate incident in the ancient church of St Michael's in Whitewell near Clitheroe. 12 months ago, at this church, St John's at Crossons near Southport on Merseyside, the vicar held an exorcism service after a family grave was disturbed.
The first thing I saw was the ladder, the bottom of the ladder into the vault. On looking across the vault with the torch, I saw that one of the coffins, the coffin of a 14-year-old boy, had in actual fact been ripped open. The wooden coffin on the outside had been taken off, and the inside lead coffin had been ripped open down the middle and very, very carefully rolled back. There was the body of the 14-year-old boy half in and half out of the coffin. There were candles all around the coffin, and...
Had the body been interfered with?
It had, in actual fact, been interfered with and desecrated, yes.
What was your reaction when you saw all this?
One of complete horror, and for a little while I was stunned.
So is this fascination with the devil increasing? One man who has no doubt that it is the Reverend George Story from Accrington.
No, very decidedly not. As a matter of fact, I could catalogue quite a few in which I was personally involved over the past few years, and they're very decidedly on the increase.
What examples have you come across?
Well, of course, this one brings to mind several others, but I have personally been involved in personal instances with some people who were actually delivered from demon possession and are now living very happily. And that is in the Accrington area I'm talking about. I could also enlarge upon that throughout the country. It is unfortunate at the present time that our church is very weak in leadership. I mean all the churches in the world, and as I said in a press article not so long ago, I've listened, as millions of others, unto, say, the Chief Bishop of the Roman Church, John Paul, and also to Robert Runcie, my own Archbishop, and other bishops, and never once have I heard them say anything about the gospel of Christ and the evil of the present day. Consequently, the devil has got free rein. It's all right, John Paul, Runcie, and all the other bishops running about and clergy talking social nonsense. That's not their job. They should be doing as Peter did and as Paul did, warning that this is a battle between good and evil.
A battle between good and evil. Well, with me in the studio is the Reverend Dick Williams, who's here representing the church. Would you agree, Miss Williams, is Satanism increasing?
Well, the practice seems to be on the increase. If I to go by my friends, my colleagues say that there's been a gradual but perceptible increase, very much amongst the young, it seems, as far as we can make out.
I mean, there have always been these sporadic outbursts of dabbling with black magic and Satanism in the press. Why is the church particularly concerned now?
Well, the church is always concerned about anything that destroys people, and Satanism is destructive of people. It destroys people.
How does it destroy them?
It seems to disturb their peace of mind. It seems to divide them within themselves. It seems to destroy their relationships with other people. Christianity is constructive, building up relationships with God and inner integrity and building up a person into true personhood. And Satanism has exactly the opposite effect.
But does it do that? I mean, couldn't it be seen as just part of a silly fad rather than a huge moral crisis?
Oh, sure. Well, it begins as a silly fad with a lot of people, but silly fads have their casualties. And just as, you can say that having a bit of a drink is a silly fad, but that has its casualties too. In alcoholism, so does Satanism.
All right, well, is the church mainly concerned with it then in its sort of capacity as social worker? You're worried about what's going to happen to youngsters who get caught up in it. Or are you more concerned with the fundamental Old Testament aspect of dabbling with sin, of conjuring up evil spirits?
Both, I think. I wouldn't want to set one against the other, because the health of the community is a reflection of the health of the person's inner personality. But yes, I think we must put first things first and say the church's chief concern is, well, hopefully the same as God's, and God's concern is to love his creatures and for them to love him rather than to love the opposite of good.
But if the reports in the press today are correct that the church is taking it all so seriously, they're thinking of organising a secret conference and appointing more clergy who are trained in exorcism, isn't this all a bit over the top for the 20th century, talking about devils and evil spirits?
I don't see the Church of England going over the top in many respects. I do know.
It's usually so pragmatic, isn't it?
Well, it's a very pragmatic thing. Nothing's more pragmatic than the Church of England. I think we take each case and each individual as they present themselves to us. In our own diocese of Liverpool, for instance, the bishop appointed some years ago a committee to look into the whole field of exorcism, and the committee included a psychiatrist, several GPs, several vicars and other people and nurses and so on, and their aim was to see the whole question of man's well-being.
Briefly, you still think exorcism has a place?
Oh yes, yes. Where there is evil, there's a greater power which can cast it out.
Very interesting conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Tony.